that should have done it. All right, ready to go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here on episode 99 of Go FUD Yourself with good friend Vincent. How are you doing today, Vincent?
Hey, definitely a pleasure to be here. Yeah, doing good.
I'm so excited to have you on. It's the first time you've been here with us, even though you've been kind of in our back pocket for a while. How are you here today? Why today?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, not only did you invite me on, but yeah, definitely wanted to be on and, be able to help out and, chat and, I guess like mutually learn. I think that's kind of the mission here.
Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to have you. Today, we're going to talk about ongoing crypto adoption, movement of capital. Part of why we're talking about this is that Vincent is basically an expert on all of that and on liquidity. So he's going to save my butt by letting us talk about mainstream adoption, kind of like mining 2.0, where crypto capital is going and how that impacts DeFi. And then we have a little bit of DGen news because we have a special episode tomorrow. We're not doing DGen news tomorrow.
Love it.
Our DGen news is a little bit more like network news, if you will. So we'll talk a little bit about Cosmos, a little bit about Poly, and a little bit about some bad choices that some DGens have made this week. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Amazing. Let's go. All right, we're here. We're ready. I've got to ask the big question because it's your first time on the episode. Is crypto dead?
They said it's dying multiple times, but I think we're still building, during times where there's low volume. I think a lot of people still continuously build in this space. It's super interesting if you just kind of see the amount of wallets that are, continuously increasing. There's a lot of retail interest, comes in waves. But I think that, once they're in, whether through, centralized exchanges and things like that, they'll eventually onboard and, get their own non-custodial wallet and be able to do things themselves.
Absolutely. I'm happy that you have that good outlook. This would be a much sadder show if you came on and you were like, yeah, this is the end, man. Well, we keep seeing in the news that crypto is going to be the future economy, or we see that crypto's dead, right? There's these two bipartisan sections of the world. But what we've been talking about a lot lately is interoperability and scalability. So in terms of interoperability, do you think that is going to like bring people forward into that mainstream adoption? Or is that just something that appeals to people who are already in crypto?
I think it's more so of like an UI UX decision and the ease of being able to onboard new users, right? Like if you're just, like for me, right, I have MetaMask and, you have to bridge it to another chain. And then after that, you have to change the network on your MetaMask, and then you have to take it out of the bridge. And then after you take it out of the bridge, then you're doing whatever you wanted to do. And I'm just like, okay, like this is coming from me, from a perspective of, okay, I've been here since 2017. I've had MetaMask, a while back, and I was, able to learn through, trial and error and be able to get there, right? Lose a couple ETH here, a couple ETH there. It's just part of the game. But I think that, in terms of nowadays with retail, and, they don't want to go through this and they want something to be relatively easy. And I think that's how you can onboard users, as long as the UI UX decision becomes a lot easier.
I'm really pleased that you gave us that DeFi tutorial because to this day, every time I have to do anything, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to start from the beginning again. If you want to also give us a security tutorial, that would be great because all of my seed phrases are still just on Post-it notes about my home. So that's a joke. That's how real. But it is how I started.
Just better not turn off your blur then.
Yeah, exactly.
Might be in the background.
Well, I always think it's interesting that you brought up institutions and institutions not wanting to jump through hoops, right? Because it's pretty evident now that institutions are joining DeFi. Institutions have joined crypto, and we're kind of moving into that blockchain finance space as opposed to this DeFi space. Super interesting though, because it's like, yeah, they don't want to log into MetaMask and they don't want to have to use a MetaMask browser on mobile, but also are they going to invest in the cost of training? Are they going to invest in the cost of security? I don't know if you ever worked somewhere corporate where you had to take like an anti-phishing class, but like if we can't even get people to not click on their emails, phishing emails, like can we actually get them to use a hardware wallet that isn't at all connected to the internet? What does that look like? There's so much to overcome in terms of security, but then we're seeing some other points that can allow for new entrants. So for example, like gas prices have dropped. Can you imagine a company like Deloitte or I don't know, Virgin like participating when gas prices are wildly high?
Yeah, no, I this is exactly it, right? I came from crypto.com, so we also had a lot of institutional interest, especially when you saw the interest rates for just being able to stake assets sufficiently higher than TradFi. We've had these cases, but the onboarding process is relatively what you described, right? They have to jump through hoops. They have to be able to onboard with us, and then there's a lot of regulatory compliance that you have to go through in terms of like, where the assets custodied, being able to figure out the workflow for various institutions, and I think that was some of the things that now we have ETF exposure potentially, right? And I think that's a much easier avenue because it's just things that they're used to. So
yeah, I mean we've had ETFs in Canada for a while.
Yeah, exactly, right.
It hasn't blown up too badly.
Our friends at 3IQ, I believe it was Fred. He's also working with Coinbase right now to offer ETH staking. So super interesting stuff. I think that we are kind of I think Canadians Ethereum was kind of born here in Toronto. So I feel like that we have a lot of the innovations too, right? From Decentral and a lot of these early companies that, form kind of like the foundations of ETH and the developments.
What do you think about how crypto is actually moving around though? So we're talking about how yes, it was being used by retail users. Now we're seeing a lot of institutions come in, but as regulatory clarity comes, or what I call we're able to see that money is actually moving from country to country in ways that it wasn't before. What do you think about that global capital?
I think it's relatively interesting, right? I was around since 2017. I've seen kind of the build up for a lot of the processing companies, right? Like BitPay, for example. I think there was a time when Shopify wanted to introduce crypto payments.
It did with Avalanche.
Exactly. So there's a lot of sorry, let me just turn off my done. I think this might be a bit better. Yeah. Awesome. Do you still hear yourself?
No, that's a bit better. Sorry, I know that the Twitter to StreamYard is always messy. I can clean it up in post-prod, but it sucks live. So.
Yeah, I know. I definitely hate hearing myself. Right?
Yeah, me too. It's the worst. And I'm sorry if you can hear yourself. I've turned mine down all the way. But yeah, Shopify introduced Avalanche payments for, I believe, NFTs like almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the payment processing is relatively interesting. I worked with a lot of these companies as well, right? I've back when you needed a lot of order flow routing. A lot of the payment processing companies needed to basically figure out, how can we avoid the risk of crypto, right? You have like a certain set time limit where they have to basically post up their subscription or their payment, and then you have the confirmation times, and then during that time, how do you hedge that risk, right, in case price moves? So these are a lot of things that we've basically dealt with in my past life, and a lot of which is you have prop trading firms, you have service providers that basically hedge that for you, so you can have a longer time for your for the end user to be able to pay for stuff. So we as long as we figure out this puzzle, end of the day, businesses need money, whether it's in crypto or whether it's in fiat. But there's always this kind of like a workflow that a lot of these companies go through in order to process payments and digital assets.
Absolutely. What do you think about how the crypto arms race is going to impact that? Are we going to see more money move out of the States or North America and into Asia-based wallets? Do you think that like all money is going to move to BRICS and we're going to see de-dollarization? I don't know. Where do you kind of stand on that?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think it ultimately depends on who offers what and where it comes from, right? It depends on the goods and services that are being sold. Depends on who kind of adopts this crypto arms race early, being able to have sufficient channels, and again, right, the UI UX component, it has to be relatively easy to do so. Otherwise, if I had to bridge through a couple of processes, like I eventually don't even want to buy the product or service at the end if the hoops are too, I guess, like too hard to get through.
Absolutely. So this is kind of interesting because what we're actually seeing in the news is that money is moving out of America, but we're not necessarily seeing that the money is moving back into America. And part of why this is interesting is it's different than TradFi, right? In TradFi, that meant that it was moving bank to bank. And in this instance, it just means that it could be a quote unquote Asia-based wallet, or it could be an offshore-based company, or there's kind of all of these different definitions that we're used to having in TradFi that maybe aren't as applicable in DeFi, because is it an Asia-based wallet or are they using a VPN? Was it ever an America-based wallet? Like, what does that actually look like? And so I think this leads us to this question, especially during a bear market: how much money is moving around in a useful manner, in a manner of utility, versus in a matter of like just degen movement?
That's a really good question. I mean, even if you just look on-chain transactions, right, you see that Uniswap and OpenSea, they contribute to a lot of the I guess like the movements on the Ethereum blockchain. I'm just basing it off the Ethereum blockchain just because it has subsequently the most volume, and then you have BSC, Bitcoin, things like that. But I think for on-chain transfers, yeah, you see a lot of the trading going on via Uniswap and things like that. But for the transfers, I'm pretty much unsure.
Yeah. You don't have to be sure. It's just an interesting thing to be considering, right? We see a lot of news about, whales moving money around, or this money has gone offshore or whatever. But like, does that apply to us the same way? I'm not sure, especially because when you think about the money that's in DeFi, we're probably seeing mostly DeFi professionals get paid in crypto and then move that crypto around. So we've talked about, retail users, we've talked about institutional users, but DeFi professionals, specifically DeFi devs and smart contract devs, are primarily making over six figures. So over 100,000 US dollars. And like, that's great. I don't have anything specific to say about that. Some people find it surprising that in a bear market we're still paying well, but maybe that just talks about how weirdly ethical crypto is. But this is why I always wonder if it's just degens participating or if we're actually seeing a more widespread participation.
Yeah, I mean, even with the top end of that 2021 run, right? We had a lot of companies raising capital, a lot of which raised a lot of capital, and I feel like that for a lot of the protocol building, and I guess like for creating DeFi, a lot of which is very I guess like specialized knowledge, right? Not only do you have to have understanding of capital markets, but you also have to be able to program sufficient things. Most of the hires that I've met are probably from like X-Trade desks, prop funds, and things like that. So you have like Citadel or some of these bigger names, and they're working on these like DeFi perps protocols or things like that. I have a good friend, his name's Dan. He runs Uptop, and that they work with Framework Ventures and a lot of these other venture companies and smaller DeFi projects, and they're actively recruiting and finding new candidates and things like that. And yeah, the salaries that are kind of outlined, like the whole I guess like that average of like six figures, it's pretty much on par, but it's because of all this specified knowledge that is required, for you to actually kind of get the talent that you're looking for.
Absolutely. I like that you're talking about kind of the future of what these devs are going to do. Did you happen to read the article about crypto mining with AI?
Yeah, I happen to do so. I mean, I skimmed it over, but then I kind of saw this coming for a while now, right? What happens when you have all these mining farms and protocols are kind of moving to basically like proof of stake, sometimes DPoS or things like that, and you have to find usage for that. And I think for example, AI I think is one of the larger things. The things I was talking about before AI was probably rendering graphics. We have that decentralized rendering and things like that. So. Totally. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of use cases for that, just to be able to repurpose, mining for different applications.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting to think about the future of crypto in this way, right? We mainly talk about the future of crypto in terms of regulation, in terms of institutions, how are retail users going to use it? Where's the money moving to? But I don't know, mining's not as popular anymore. We sometimes have guests on who like to talk about it, but it's kind of like, it's almost under the rug, right? It's just not a hot topic. But maybe we'll see more of it. I mean, well, okay, so there was a scam actually, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, where you downloaded Super Mario Forever, and then it was using your GPU to mine XRP from, was it Ripple or was it something else? But it was mining
Monero. XMR.
Monero, that's right.
Yes.
XMR.
I
Um,
remember that.
yeah, so like if we have that kind of happening, that tells me that there's maybe a future to mining that we haven't considered. And if we're then actually looking at how we're going to, I don't know, code pair with AI to increase our mining efficiency, or just to increase our like proof of work, if anything is going to continue being proof of work. I don't know. It's an interesting future for crypto.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of that. I think back then, maybe like around like 2018, where you had a lot of these applications that just basically mine crypto in the background, and
That's right.
we have a lot of rules now stating what your various permissions, and I think that's a large thing now, especially a lot of things that people are talking about, right? And this is more so just being able to talk about, like what is my device doing as I'm on this application. And yeah, like if you're mining someone's digital mining crypto assets for someone else, that's definitely something you should definitely mention. So yeah, I see that a lot. And even when you're talking about mining and how it's not so popular now, do you remember back when before ETH went to ETH 2.0, they had the whole ESG
Oh yeah.
issue? And I was like, oh yeah, like there was a lot of people saying, oh yeah, like mining's not environmentally friendly, and various other things, and that kind of led to a decreased discussion, I feel like, in terms of proof of work and mining and like that sort.
Absolutely. And we still get news about that sometimes. Earlier this year, we had some news about people secretly mining Bitcoin in the basement of high schools, and like the amount of power draw that they had. And the Sierra Club is still protesting Bitcoin mining. And the state of Montana just put in new legislation about Bitcoin mining. So it's still something that's interesting and active. And I don't know, I'm thrilled to see how AI is going to impact it, just like I'm thrilled to see how AI is going to impact anything, because the brightest minds will always find a way forward. Not such a smooth segue, but you did talk about new rules that come into play. And yes,
Yeah.
we're going to see some regulation surrounding AI in EU. We actually see these Web3 and AI bills often coupled, even though they're not actually the same technology. But we have some other types of regulation, like what the heck is going on with Kraken? So we're just, so now that we know who Vince is, and now that we know where Vincent is coming from and what his opinions on crypto are, and we know that he's on board and he doesn't think crypto is dead, we're actually going to do some news. And so this was almost 2 days ago now, but Kraken has been asked to submit user information to the IRS because they want to see who's evading taxes. And I don't know, do you think Kraken's going to do it? Do they have to do it?
I mean, under Jesse from Kraken, I think that they've embraced a lot of the crypto ethos, and most of which just believing decentralization, believing privacy, and just being able to operate as an extension of what the crypto community is. And that was kind of like the blood and like the blood and soul of Kraken, which I believe. So I mean, this is totally up to the IRS and how they choose to enforce this. But I think from like a service level, I feel like that Kraken as an exchange is more so embracing that true crypto ethos. So we definitely have to see what happens then. But yeah, but I mean, it's definitely building up, I feel like, in the US, most of the US.
Absolutely. I thought that this was kind of interesting because the IRS is requesting a lot of information on people between 2016 and 2020. Anyone who transacted more than $20,000 a year via Kraken. A couple interesting things there. One, if you're transacting that much a year via Kraken as opposed to on a DEX, like maybe you're already compliant. It seems like something a bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, if you take that to a TradFi, for example, right? You have to kind of report these, right? Any transaction over 10,000, you have to file a large currency transaction report, and you have to also look at and you also have to look at a lot of these things from the TradFi side of things. So I mean, this kind of explains it, right? Like you have like a handful of people with multiple millions under an ENS. Right. And if you're looking at that from like a banking side of things, just like, oh, you can't really fathom that, because without, like, you have tens of millions of dollars inside an ENS, which is pseudo anonymous or whatever. It just opens up the pathway for a lot of a lot of non-savory activities to happen. and yeah, I think that even with with centralized exchanges, they're kind of the gateway for the the like for getting money back into fiat and to, you know, explore this whole decentralized ecosystem, right? And they're acting as the kind of the gateways for just being, you know, making sure that a lot of this these funds are compliant, you know, following KYC AML regulations, and they're just trying to do the best job in, you know, assuring that, you know, that it stays the way it is.
It's interesting that you mentioned KYC. So some of the things that the IRS has asked for does include names, birthdays, taxpayer information, phone numbers, email addresses, pretty well everything that you can imagine them asking for. Were you participating in KYC in 2016? Like, I tried to avoid it as long as possible, and I didn't have to use it on some exchanges, more DEX style exchanges, until last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how. Yeah, even like 2016, it's we had one of the first Bitcoin ATMs back in Vancouver, right? So yeah. I mean, even for us to get Bitcoin, it was a series of hoops. Even for me, it's like, oh, until this burrito shop out in like West Burrard had a Bitcoin ATM, or this coffee shop, it was relatively hard for you to actually buy Bitcoin. And and for us, it's like, okay, you know, they didn't really have KYC ML measures until maybe like 2020, when they actually had, you know, withdrawal limits and deposit limits. But back then it was just Wild West, and that was just because, you know, it was considered technology at the time. It was really considered like things where a TradFi had to be involved.
Absolutely. It's funny that you talk about Bitcoin ATMs. Our first ones were in a chai shop in Edmonton. So
wow.
Yeah, real legit.
Yeah. Ours is like Waves Coffee, and
nice.
and the guy had like a separate office for you to do OTC transactions. That was probably like the first times that we've seen an OTC trade happening, and it's inside a coffee shop.
Absolutely wild. So we go from these times when we like are literally going to coffee shops that are way out of not convenient for us to participate in crypto at all, and now we see that Ethereum's liquid staking derivatives platforms have over $20 billion in them. It's kind of a stark contrast. Can you believe that the market is this big now?
I mean, yeah, it's amazing, and it's just because, you know, a lot of these, like we have institutions partake. We also have a lot, you know, development ecosystems that are willing to partake, and I think it's going to be very interesting that now we see, you know, like liquid staking derivatives, we see doors open up for, you know, interest-bearing assets, and I think that, you know, that's going to garner a lot of attraction from institutions.
Absolutely. It's exciting. I don't know. I just think it's a really stark contrast that we need to highlight is, do we really want regulation to go back and look at something that we were doing in 2016 when we were going to coffee shops and trying to buy Bitcoin from weird dudes, as compared to what's going on now with millions and millions of dollars worth of liquid staking derivatives? Like, it seems almost a little bit too reactionary, like too retroactive. I mean, not reactionary. Yeah. I don't know.
What was that legal term called, where it's like the statute of
limitations? Yeah.
Yes, I think there should it should apply somewhere in between when we're buying crypto from ATMs and when it's actually, you know, you're onboarding via centralized exchange, or you're doing like bank transfers and things like that. I feel like there should be, you know, somewhere in between when you're trying to discover how this thing works, and from okay, now it's for real.
There should be some sort of grace period for that, for sure, because like I don't know, it just doesn't seem fair to be regulating that far back. Okay, the last big thing that we should talk about today is that Tether is going to be using Kava on Cosmos, which is kind of a big deal. So USDT is coming to Cosmos via Kava, and I think this is good news for you because you participate in the Kava ecosystem professionally.
Yes. I mean, I'm one of the core contributors of Hover, and Hover is a lending protocol. So I mean, this is very interesting news for us, especially if Tether is partnering with Kava for native USDT. I can kind of give a brief about why this is amazing and interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
Because I think, you know, like I said before, right, the issues with, you know, trying to explore new ecosystems is the difficulty and the act of jumping through these hoops, right? Like, you know, if you're looking at someone that has assets on Ethereum on MetaMask, then you would have to actively find a bridge. You have to probably transfer that the Ethereum into stables, and then be able to bridge that over to the Kava EVM chain, and then be able to participate in Hover and deposit in
Right.
either our Genesis pools that are opening up soon, or our lending protocol itself. So why this is interesting is that, when Tether is partnering up with Kava, that means that they would be working on native implementation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tron, and how Tron has TRC20, and they also have USDT natively, and it just made it a lot cheaper, especially during that 2021 run, where a transaction was like $60 or something like that. It was crazy. So a lot of people from exchanges opted to withdraw their USDT through Tron, and that made it a lot cheaper, because now they're paying pennies on what would be a couple dollars. So that increased the accessibility, and that also increases the ease of usage. And this is very similar in the Kava ecosystem. So for Kava right now, I think Binance has enlisted, along with several other exchanges as well. And having a USDT on Kava means you can withdraw directly. You could withdraw USDT directly into the Kava ecosystem. That is amazing, because not only does it help institutions, it also helps retail looking to explore the chain. Also helps different projects that are looking to deploy on the Kava ecosystem. And this is very cool stuff for us, because we're looking to kind of grow the ecosystem. I spoke with for example, like Tommy from the Kava Foundation, and we're always talking about, okay, how can we like look for more projects to deploy on Kava? How can we work with them and kind of create this synergy, for example, to be able to kind of grow not only the Kava ecosystem, but also be able to grow kind of like the developer hub, and just be able to shine light on projects, and even existing projects to be able to deploy on the Kava ecosystem. So with this Tether integration, I think that's going to help us a lot, because now you have this foundational layer, and you also have this ease of withdrawal per se. And yeah, I think overall, I'm just super excited for that to happen.
Vincent, I'm probably not allowed to ask, but I'm going to ask. Does this mean that you're going to have USDT Genesis pools? All right. I thought it was worth asking, in case you had decided this morning that it was like a yeah or not.
But we will announce that on our Twitter and Telegram, so you can definitely follow. And
where can I find you? We have to wrap up, but if I need more information about Hover, or about Kava, or about USDT on Kava, and why that matters to me, where can I find Vincent?
Yeah, so I mean, you can find me on my own Twitter, and that's Twitter at Moonboy Deluxe, and you can also look for us on Hover as well, twitter.com/hover_market, and that would be the best place to find us. You can also find our Telegram on there. You can also find our token economics. You can also find a lot of the kind of like overarching information about our project.
You can also find out what they're going to do with USDT.
Yes.
All right. This is a live show. That's why it's so ridiculous. We do it every day, Monday to Friday at the same time. Whatever time it is right now when you're watching it, that's the time that you can tune in. We stream everywhere: LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter Spaces, anywhere that you can dream and imagine. But big deal is that tomorrow is our 100th episode. Vincent is back tomorrow. Vincent, what topic did you sign up for in the debates? Do you remember?
I think I signed up for all of them. So I mean, I'm super excited to speak on all of these.
Four different topics. We're talking about MasterCard versus CBDCs. We have scams and whether they're necessary, or if we need more regulation. I believe that we are talking about gamification and the onboarding of the next billion users. So it should be a really exciting show. It will be a little bit longer. It'll be about 45 minutes tomorrow. So make sure that you tune in, log in, and let us know what you think. Vincent, go FUD yourself.
I love it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You got to say it back.
Okay, go FUD yourself.
Nailed it. Okay, thank you so much, Vincent. I will see you tomorrow.
Cheers.